Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
They will thrust a cell phone in your face. If you ask a question, they'll surround you with cameras. They'll scream at you. They'll try to get you to commit violence. I believe God is giving us a little bit of a glimpse into what life without Him would be like.
A Disciple's View with Todd Herman. Critical information from a faith-enriching perspective. Weekdays at noon Central on AFR. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Robert Thornton. President Donald Trump is pushing parents to open so-called Trump accounts to give kids a financial jump start. More from Fox's Jared Halpern.
With a growing list of U.S. business leaders pledging matching contributions, President Trump says parents should take advantage of newly created Trump accounts this tax season.
We'll ensure that Americans don't just end their lives with a nest egg, but instead all Americans will begin their lives with a beautiful nest egg.
Officials say more than 500,000 families have already set up accounts that includes a federal contribution of $1,000 for every American child born between 2025 and 2028. The accounts are tied to stock index funds like retirement accounts. At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
A Second Amendment advocate disagrees with a recent comment of the FBI director regarding the right of a citizen to carry a loaded firearm during an anti-ICE protest. More from AFN's Chad Groening.
FBI Director Kash Patel created a firestorm from gun rights groups over his remarks following the fatal shooting of Alex Pretty by a federal agent who believed his life was in danger. Minnesota officials say Pretty was a lawful gun owner with a permit to carry, and the 37-year-old intensive care nurse reportedly had no criminal record. But Patel told the Fox News Channel that, quote, "You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have that right to break the law and incite violence." Luis Valdez is a national spokesman for Gun Owners of America. He says they don't agree with Patel's contention.
We, the people, have the right to exercise our voice and speak freely. We have the right to carry while doing it. And the responsibility that comes with it is we have to be respectful and lawful. But the other side of that is government has to recognize that our rights are inalienable and they cannot be violated in any way, shape, and form.
Valdez says GOA agrees with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
We want full investigation of this incident. And as for the comments of carrying a loaded firearm and 2 spare magazines, look, I carry a loaded handgun, 2 spare magazines everywhere I go. I do that as a private citizen. I did that as a police officer. The idea of carrying a pistol and 2 reloads on you isn't anything earth-shattering. It's a common practice that hundreds of thousands to millions of Americans do every day.
I'm Chad Groening.
Pennsylvania Democrat Senator John Fetterman made a post on X yesterday where he asked President Trump to fire Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in response to the death of Alex Pretty and Renee Good. In an appearance on Fox, he recalled a meeting he had with Secretary Noem in his office.
I want to deport all the criminals, and she's like, absolutely. And I don't think we should be targeting otherwise lawful migrants.
Democrats are calling for Noem to step down, and Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar even threatened articles of impeachment. Fetterman joined Republicans to approve Noem in a 59-34 vote. He usually breaks with Democrats on border security issues. FBI agents executed a search warrant at the Fulton County Elections Office near Atlanta today, seeking records tied to the 2020 election, according to the county. Fulton spokeswoman Jessica Corbett Dominguez declined to comment further and said the search was still underway. The Federal Open Market Committee concluded its first meeting of the new year today. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell spoke with reporters at the central bank and announced the committee's decision on federal interest rates.
While job gains have remained low, the unemployment rate has shown some signs of stabilization, and inflation remains somewhat elevated. In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy rate unchanged.
This is the first time the Fed left rates unchanged since last summer after it made cuts by 25 basis points in each of its final 3 meetings of 2025. On Wall Street, stocks were up. The Dow was up 12, the S&P was nearly unchanged, and the Nasdaq climbed 40. On this day in 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 1 minute and 13 seconds after liftoff from Cape Canaveral, killing all 7 crew members, including school teacher Krista McAuliffe. And that is all our time for now. Find more news online at afm.net.
Learning University.
That wasn't stereo right there, fellas.
That was jumbled.
We were struggling.
The bumblebee was called the humblebee. Is that true?
Chicken legs are also called drumsticks.
Yeah, that's not a good ice cream flavor. They've got some little tiny saddles that they put on those dragons. Unfortunately, you can only ride them once.
Because then they turn around and take your leg off. Hey, Andrew, you want to ask it?
I'm so excited about getting on. I missed my exit.
Friday mornings at 10 Central on American Family Radio.
Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media
and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
And once again, it's Bishop E.W. Jackson in for Abraham Hamilton III. Great to be with you again tonight. Folks, we've got an exciting program and some very, very important issues to talk about, so stay tuned. And I want to hear from you later on in the program, so I hope you've got the number nearby, 888-589-8840, because in the last segment, I'm going to be spending all of the time taking your calls. Let's get right into it, and we've already reported this issue on the news. This last gentleman, Pretty, who got shot and killed at at one of these protests, and I guess didn't hear him say it. He may have said it. If he did, he misspoke. Kash Patel said you don't have a right to carry a firearm to a protest. Well, I beg to differ. I agree with Second Amendment advocates. You can carry your firearm, in my view. You can carry it pretty much anywhere you want other than onto private property where people don't want you to bring it. I think that's a different matter, of course. You have a right, people have a right to, on their private property, to say, no, I don't want you coming on my property with a firearm, in which case you just move on. I have a problem with all of these rules, though, on public property. I've gone to events, get up to the door, and it says, no firearms allowed. I've got to walk all the way back to my car because I'm almost always carrying. I've got to walk all the way back to my car, lock my firearm away, and then walk all the way back to get in. And I'm thinking, the criminal who shows up or sneaks in or has been lurking somewhere could care less about their little rules. But this is what these paternalistic, supercilious know-it-alls think, that, that somehow if law-abiding citizens are not armed, it's going to be much, much better. And actually, it's going to be much, much more dangerous. And we've seen that over and over and over again. When there's when there's no good guy with a gun to respond to a bad guy with a gun, things are far worse. Now, having said that, I will say this. If you're going to go to a rally and you are prepared to get into physical confrontations with law enforcement officers, I would recommend that you leave your firearm at home. If that is your intention, if you know that that's a likelihood, I would suggest that you leave your firearm at home. Because if you get into a confrontation with law enforcement and they know you have a firearm, what do you think they're going to say to you? They're going to want to disarm you. Because if you pose any kind of physical threat to them and you've got a firearm, they're going to say, you have to give that up, at least for the time being. And if you don't want to be in that position, either go and participate peacefully and stay out of physical confrontations and belligerent confrontations with law enforcement, or leave your firearm at home. I mean, that's the prudent thing to do. Because again, once you get into a physical confrontation with somebody, as I've explained before, it doesn't take but a split second for a person to pull a firearm and shoot you. And in close quarters, they don't have to take time to aim, get it out and pull the trigger, and the person they're having the confrontation with could be gone in a split second. And of course, no law enforcement officer should be forced to have to deal with that. So I think this is going to go away, frankly. I think it's going to go away.
because I think as the facts come out, it will become clear. The whole issue of whether he had a right to carry, he was a licensed firearm carrier, so he had a right to carry. But the issue is, was it prudent for him to allow himself to get into a confrontation with police officers, with law enforcement officers, immigration officers, while he was carrying a firearm? Because I'm sure that given the tenor of these protests, I'm sure they felt threatened. And probably, and again, I'm speculating. I don't know exactly how this went down, but my guess is they spotted the firearm, saw the way he was behaving, and tried to disarm him. Probably initially asked for the firearm, and he wouldn't give it up. And that's the point at which they resorted to trying to disarm him, and gunplay ensued, at least on the immigration officer's part. So we'll see. You know, I always say with these things, let's wait for the facts. All I can do right now is give you speculation, but let's wait for the facts and see how this unfolds. But yeah, as far as the right to carry a firearm to a protest, we have a perfect right to do that because we have a Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, and it really doesn't matter where you're going unless you're entering into private property. By the way, I have a real problem with this post office rule. You know, you're not allowed to go on post office property with a firearm because of what some nutcases have done, you know, gone postal, as they say. So they restrict the law-abiding citizen. So if you're there and somebody goes postal because you can't bring your firearm in there, you are completely at the postal nutcase's mercy. But, you know, somehow they think that, you know, that's, and they don't search you. You don't go through any metal detector. I mean, they think the bad guy cares about a sign saying no firearms allowed. I will never understand. There is no logic. Forget about understanding. You don't have to understand it because there is no logic to it. The logic is they want to control the American people. They want to disarm us. That's the logic. And they'll use any excuse they can to try to advance that cause. Okay, so look, later on in the program, feel free to comment on that. Give me your thoughts. You law enforcement officers out there, if you are available to call me and give me, because I'd certainly be curious about your perspective on that. This gets into a whole bunch of stuff. You know, I've heard some people say that when they're stopped in a traffic situation, you know, for an alleged violation, maybe they didn't stop for a stop sign, or maybe they were speeding or whatever, and they're carrying, they tell the officer they were carrying, or that they are carrying. Do you all do that? Because I have to say, I don't. Because my attitude is, why complicate the interaction? Now, if the officer said to me, for whatever reason, said to me, sir, would you mind stepping out of the vehicle? Then I would tell him. Because I wouldn't want him to be surprised by it. But then I would tell him. But as long as license and registration, give him my license and registration, he goes back, he checks me out, he comes back, he gives me a warning or gives me a ticket, whatever he's going to do, and I go on about my business. I don't see that it's relevant at all. But, you know, and I'm not legally required to. But, yeah, I think if an officer asked me to get out for whatever reason, I've never had that happen, but if he asked me to get out of the vehicle, I think at that point I would tell him so that he wouldn't be caught by surprise, and then I'd follow his instructions as to how he wanted me to handle that. So that way he doesn't have to feel threatened at all. If he said, well, sir, would you mind taking that out and you know, emptying your taking out your magazine and emptying whatever you have in the chamber, I'd appreciate that. Then hand that over to me, and I'll hold on to it until we're done. I don't know whether an officer would say that or not, but if he did, I would comply. I wouldn't say, no, I'm not doing that. You don't have a right. I would not get into that. If I thought that the officer had violated my constitutional rights, I would simply obey his instruction, and then later on go back and say, hey, I believe that this officer violated my rights in this case. And I'd do that in the calm of a police station, file some kind of report. I would not get into a battle with a law enforcement officer on the road arguing with him about whether he had a right to have me take my firearm off. I think that's the way to get killed. Because then he's wondering, well, what is this guy's mindset? Is he prepared to kill me to stop me from taking his firearm? So, these are not issues, in my view, really so much of rights like this guy who went to the protest. These are issues of common sense and judgment. And also, respect for law enforcement. I mean, show some respect for the authority of those people carrying that badge and in uniform, and know that, look, they're not perfect people either. But if you want to, you think maybe they've made a mistake, address that in the calm of a later moment, rather than getting into an argument, and certainly rather than getting into a push and shove when you're carrying a firearm. Because again, if that's what this guy did, I mean, that's on him. Bad judgment. But that's on him. Okay, want to get that, just get that on the table and hear what your comments are. I'll come back to, I'll open it up for comments about this issue later in the program. Let me get into this, though. This situation in Minneapolis continues to be in the forefront of the news. I wanted to raise something I don't think I've raised with you all as yet, but I want to raise it now. Do you all remember, or did you hear about Karen Bass, mayor of Los Angeles, who raised the issue of why Hispanics would work for ICE or Border Patrol, suggesting that they're traitors to, quote unquote, their people, and that things would not go well for them? I am convinced of this, folks, and I don't think anybody has really talked about this element of it. I am convinced that the tremendous level of hostility that we see, because I haven't heard anybody say they don't have the right to do what they're doing. I've heard people say this is not right. I haven't heard them say they don't have the right. I haven't heard them quote any statutory authority for the fact that ICE can't go and detain, arrest, apprehend, hold people for deportation, particularly those who already have detainers on them. Some of them have deportation orders and detainers on them. I haven't heard anybody say, no, they can't do that. You have to just cut them loose. Although I think that's what the Democrats really want. That's what the leftists really want. But here's another element to this. These people, these leftists are so self-obsessed and so race obsessed, I guess I should say, that I think they really have a particular antipathy for most of these immigration enforcement officers and these Border Patrol officers because they are Hispanic. And, I've made this point over and over and over again. I think the American people, by and large, are over it. I guarantee, I believe that probably 95% of the American people, maybe higher than that, could care less what your race is, what the color of your skin is, what your background is. They care about what kind of human being you are. And if you are a decent, honorable human being, they are happy to work with you. They are happy to interact with you. And if you are a fool, they are happy to get as far away from you as they can. And if you happen to have darker skin and you're a fool and they get far away from you, somebody calls them a racist for doing so, I think most American people say, yeah, okay, right. What else is due? It has nothing to do with that. It simply has to do with the fact that this person is a fool. There are other words I could use, not vulgar words, but, other words I could use. But I'll stick with fool because that's the biblical word. This person's a fool, and I'm going to get as far away from him as I can. But not with the left. Oh, no, no, no. Because by definition, if you are not an American of European ancestry, or not, as they would put it, white, you are automatically a victim of racism. And you ought to have sense enough to know that therefore you should always side with them because they are your racial saviors. I think that there is a particular antipathy that they have for these ICE agents precisely because they are overwhelmingly, more than a majority, happen to be of Hispanic descent. And Mayor Karen Bass said that very thing. How could they work for ICE? How could they work for the Border Patrol? But here's my point in this. See, the spirit of the Democrat Party is still a slave spirit because they really want to control people. They desperately want to control people. And race is one of the tools that they use to try to control and manipulate people. And when people violate their model of what that person should be, and they happen to be a quote-unquote person of color, oh my goodness, they hate you. Stand by. Back in a moment.
A Discipleship Minute with Joseph Parker.
In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 28, starting in verse 18, it tells us these words. And Jesus came and spoke to them, saying, All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Amen. That contains what we call the Great Commission. God calls us to be a disciple and to make disciples. And that's a command God lays before us each and every day. Every day is a day for us to follow Jesus Christ and to be involved in the work of helping and teaching and encouraging others to follow Jesus Christ as well. Ask someone how you can pray for them. Encourage someone to read 3 chapters in the Bible every day. Pray for God to help you to both be a faithful disciple and to make disciples as well.
While in the emergency room with my wife, as she was struggling with the COVID-19 virus herself, and I looked at her, I said, "Are you scared?" And she said, a little bit, but I've been through worse.
The Certainty of Mankind's History with Uncertainty, an article by Peter Rosenberger.
And then, as her fever was approaching almost 103, she started singing In Christ Alone. I place my trust and find my glory in the power of the cross. And that's how she has anchored herself in the certainty of Christ through her huge medical journey that has included 80 surgeries, both of her legs amputated, 100 doctors have treated her, 12 hospitals, and now the COVID-19 virus. And so when we live with those kinds of uncertainties, anchoring ourselves in Christ alone, that's the only place we can run to where there is certainty.
To read this article and more, visit afa.net/The Stand.
Hey everybody, it's Chad with the band Unspoken. I've seen firsthand how powerful it is when the church comes together, and that's exactly what Redeem Health Share is all about. With rising medical costs, Redeem offers a more affordable way to care for your family. Their flexible programs are designed to fit your budget without sacrificing your values. Each month, members contribute a share amount to help pay each other's medical bills, and you choose the providers and the treatments that are right for your family. It's not just about the money, it's about community. Redeem Health Share is rooted in biblical principles. So whether it's a routine visit or sudden emergency, there's a caring Christian community walking with you every step of the way. This time of the year is a great reminder to make choices that reflect our faith. So if you're looking for another way forward, one that reflects your faith, this is it. Call 844-REDEEM-0 today. Join the movement, share joyfully, and live redeemed.
Shining light into the darkness. This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Yeah, I am convinced, folks. This is Bishop E.W. Jackson, by the way, in for Abraham Hamilton III. I am convinced that that's why we see the level of hostility we are seeing, because there is a feeling of betrayal. You see, they really believe that they have, the leftists really believe that they have a right to dictate to the people they frame as quote unquote people of color. By the way, have you all heard have you heard me on this? I said, which again is another stupid and misleading and divisive phrase, because I've never met a person without color. Have you? Everybody I've ever met in my life has had color. But, you know, this is the little cute phrase, people of color. It's like, because what they really mean is people of darker hue than the average European. But, you know, a lot of Europeans have darker hue depending upon where they come from. You know, in Southern Europe, Southern Spain, Southern Italy, people can be very, very tan. But then that's not what they're talking about. They're basically, what they're really talking about is all people of European ancestry versus everybody else. That's really what they're getting at. But this idea that if you, in fact, let me just tell you what basically Karen Bass raised a question, and she says, and I'm quoting now, she says, these people are going to have a hard time. Let me get the quote. She says, I think that these Border Patrol agents are going to have a difficult time when they are out in the field and they see what actually happens in real life separate from their training. You know what I think she's getting at? I think she's getting at when they get out in the field and they find out how their own people respond to them. They're gonna get a real awakening. Because she was doing a CNN interview and she was responding, and you know, because they're arresting their own blood, their own kind. But I love this, folks. I really love this. They found a Border Patrol agent by the name of Juan Peralta, and they asked him about how he felt about arresting his own kind and arresting his own blood. And he says, they didn't come in the right way, so they aren't my kind. I love that because, you know, you could just extrapolate that and say, if you don't come the right way, you're not my kind. I mean, those are words to live by. You know, I just think that's the mindset that every American ought to have. Ply me not with this nonsense about, I need somebody who looks like me. Well, what? What does that even mean? First of all, nobody really looks like me. You know? For better or for worse. Take that however you want to take it. Nobody really looks like me. But, you know, again, this is meant to separate us from other people. This is more of the mindset of segregation, the very thing the whole civil rights movement was supposed to end. How about somebody who thinks like me? How about somebody who believes like me? How about somebody who holds the same principles, the same values, the same ideals that I have? How about that? But apparently that kind of thinking is just too deep for these leftists. And by the way, it doesn't work for them because they find that using race and ethnicity is a much more effective emotional tool of manipulation of people. And that's why they resort to it over and over and over again. It is the last refuge of the scoundrel to resort to that, to try to manipulate and control people. And that's exactly what they're doing here. And I believe that's why they want to tear through a hotel window to get at these people. They want to intimidate them. They want to let them know how much they hate them. I mean, you heard Swalwell talking about, if I became governor of California, I would strip them of their licenses. Now, wait a minute. You've got law-abiding American citizens who are doing a lawful job for a lawfully established agency under legislation that was passed by Congress and signed by a former president. And you mean to tell me you're going to strip them of their driver's license because they happen to work for ICE or work for the Border Patrol? And you want to accuse President Trump of being some kind of tyrant? I mean, that takes real chutzpah. Because these people who think this way, they are the tyrants. They're the ones who want to strip us of our rights simply because we don't agree with them. Now, speaking of that, because they're always accusing we conservatives of being haters and all that, I don't know who this guy is, but when Ilhan Omar was holding some kind of town meeting, some guy came up to her and using some kind of syringe, sprayed her with some kind of liquid. We don't know what it is, but that doesn't appear to have been anything life-threatening. Probably just something he came up with to try to slime her or something. Well, let me just say for the record what Tim Walz will not say, what Jacob Fry will not say, when the people who are in agreement with them behave in unlawful and violent and disorderly ways, they won't denounce that. They won't condemn that. They won't discourage that. But let me say, to the extent that this guy thinks he's some kind of conservative hero, as far as I'm concerned, he's a bum. Because we don't do that to people. Not even to Ilhan Omar. We just don't do that. You don't attack people. You don't try to poison people. You don't try to throw stuff on people. It's out of order. It's wrong. We have to defeat these people on the high plane of ideas and at the ballot box, not with violence and intimidation and threats. That's their bailiwick. That's what they do. As Christians, we do not resist evil with evil. We overcome evil with good. I'm not talking about physical self-defense. That's an entirely different category. I'm talking about this spiritual and cultural battle that we are in. We don't need to be pouring stuff on people. Not that any of you would do that, obviously. We need to be pouring the word on people. That's what we need to do. We need to give them the word. Besides that, Ilhan Omar, I don't know how she suddenly became rich virtually overnight. Went from worth a few thousands of dollars, literally a few tens of thousands of dollars, to now being a multimillionaire. I forget exactly what the number is, but it's up there. I forget what she's worth now, but it's in the millions. Who knows what we are going to uncover in that investigation, but I certainly would like to know, given the fact, again, that these leftists, since they're not entrepreneurs, they haven't invented anything, they haven't created anything, they haven't innovated anything, they haven't discovered anything, and yet suddenly they go from sort of middle income to being multimillionaires. How does that work? For these people who, by the way, are always expressing their hatred for wealth. We got to tax the wealthy. We got to tax the rich. We got to take more of their money. But I'll tell you what, they certainly don't miss an opportunity to become one of them. And it's almost never, ever by entrepreneurial activity. Never by good old-fashioned hard work, productivity, creativity, innovation, invention. Never by that. No. It's always somehow with some kind of little political element to it in which they curry favor and obtain favor on the basis of their political connections and machinations. That's how they do it. That's how the Obamas became rich. That's why they're worth $100 million. Because they haven't built anything. In fact, remember, he ridiculed that. You can't say, you didn't build that. Well, you can't say that about Barack Obama because they never built anything. But they're very, very wealthy in this wonderful country of ours. I wonder how Ilhan Omar, I understand how Obama got rich once he became president. Once he left the presidency, everybody was throwing money at him. All the liberals were throwing money at him. Netflix and book publishers and everybody else throwing money at him. How did that happen with Ilhan Omar? Well, it remains to be seen, but I do want to see. So, you reap what you sow, ultimately. In fact, I was just reading it. What was it? I reading in I can't remember whether it was one of the Proverbs, but it just says this in several parts of the Bible. Do not fret over evildoers, because they will soon be cut off. So we don't have to hurt people. We don't have to kill people. We don't have to throw stuff on people and all that nonsense. All we got to do is take our stand, pray, and believe God. Now do our part. I always say in 2 Chronicles chapter 20, God says to the children of Israel, set yourselves, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. And Jehoshaphat told him, we do not need to fight in this battle. The Lord will fight it for us. But you know what? God didn't tell him, you all go home and go to bed and take a nap. I got this. No. God said, no. You take to the battlefield. You set yourselves, and then you stand there with courage and faith. And then I'll step in and add my super to your natural, and you'll get a supernatural result. But you don't get to retire. You don't get to quit. You don't get to do nothing. The Lord will make a way somehow. Yeah, he will. But faith without works is dead. So we got to do our part. We got to pray, but we got to also organize. We've got to give. We've got to vote. We've got to do all those things that a responsible American citizen ought to do in order to maintain this wonderful constitutional republic God has given to us through our founding fathers. By the way, folks, it is going to be very interesting to see. I was talking to somebody about the celebration of the 250th coming up this year. You all know that the what do they call the semi-quincentennial committee that is going to be managing a lot of this for the government was appointed by Barack Obama. Yep. They don't even like the country. I'm thinking, what are they going to do? Burn the flag as a celebration of the 250th? What in the world are they going to do? I have no doubt that President Trump will do his own thing, and to the extent that this committee does anything, if he can piggyback on it, he will. But I'm sure he's going to do his own thing, because I wouldn't trust them to do anything to recognize the greatness and the blessing of the United States of America. But that's who's got it. I'm sure we here at AFR are going to be doing some things. My organization is going to be doing some things. A number of patriots that I know are going to be doing some things. We're going to all band together to the extent that we can come together and do some things. But we're going to make sure that we give God the gratitude we owe him, and the country the honor we owe it for 250 years, a 250-year legacy of liberty. Oh, that's pretty good right there, right? A 250-year legacy of liberty. And thank God for it. So, these people who don't like our country and, they denounce it, like Ilhan Omar recently said not too long ago, about a month ago, well, maybe a couple months ago, she said, America's supposed to be this great country. It's one of the worst countries in the world. I don't see her rushing to get back to Somalia, do you? So I think what this Border Patrol agent said is it is eloquently and succinctly stated. They didn't come the right way, so they're not my kind. But if you want to come the right way, we welcome you. We welcome you to come on into our country. If you're coming the right way with the right attitude, of course, as well, because now we know that there are people who come into our country. They come, quote unquote, the right way, but they don't come with the right heart. And they come with an intention of somehow trying to overthrow or fundamentally transform our country, and we don't need them either. I love President Trump's idea of trying to revoke the citizenship of some of these people. I don't think he'll be able to get that done. But I'll tell you what, I think we ought to pass some legislation that says when you become a naturalized citizen, you are on probation for the rest of your life. And if you start behaving in a way that is contrary to the interests of the United States of America, then we just send you back where you came from. It's very simple. So, look, folks. These people out here in Minneapolis and in Minnesota, they don't worry me in the least, because I think they're going to reap exactly what they're sowing. It could end up, folks, that the whole kit and caboodle of them end up in jail. And we got $19 billion potentially missing. I'll tell you what, who knows what we're going to find out about which politicians had their hands in the till. I tell you what, they better stop attacking President Trump and attacking these ICE agents and vilifying them and calling them Nazis and Gestapo. And they better hire some lawyers and get their own act together, because they may be about to pay a terrible price. This is Bishop E.W. Jackson. Look, when we come back, I'm going to be taking your calls. The number is 888-589-8840. That's 888-589-8840. We'll be back in a moment.
When you hear this,
this is American Family News.
You know what follows is the truth. Your news from a Christian perspective.
Hundreds of teachers are going to have to walk into that school building, and they are forced to swallow political ideology that in many cases violates their very faith and conscience.
If you miss it at the top of the hour, American Family News podcasts are available at afn.net. And sign up for our daily news brief at afn.net. AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
Mayhem in Minnesota. This is David Wheaton, host of The Christian Worldview. What is the worldview behind the protests, obstruction, and rampant obscenity that marks the mayhem taking place in Minnesota against ICE agents, to the point of agitators disrupting church services? ICE agents are tasked with removing those who have illegally entered our country, many of whom have committed other crimes. The protesters take the side of lawlessness because they, according to Romans 1, suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Everything God designed for our good and His glory, including law and order, truth-suppressing man relentlessly works to overthrow. Hear our most recent program on this topic at thechristianworldview.org, and then tune in this weekend for another topic that will sharpen your worldview.
Listen to The Christian Worldview with David Wheaton, Saturday mornings at 8 Central on American Family Radio.
When I give, I want to give to those things that are on the heart of God in Scripture. And when I look at God's Word, I see three big categories. The ministry of God's justice, the oppressed and victims. The ministry of God's mercy, the poor and needy. The ministry of God's Word, preaching and teaching and discipleship. Well, clearly the American Family Association is involved in the work proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ and providing biblical worldview training. Well, if you'd like to support the incredible work of the American Family Association, you can do that and ensure this work will continue for generations. The AFA Foundation uses creative and tax-efficient tools to help you give wisely, like a charitable gift annuity, like including AFA in your will or your trust, even helping you give non-cash gifts. So if you'd like to support the incredible work of the American Family Association, contact the team today at afafoundation.net.
AFA Stream is a resource for life-changing instruction and information, a source of wholesome entertainment and relaxation, plus access to some of your favorite AFA shows. You can watch a lot of content for free, or you can become a Great Commission partner. Then you'll not only open the door to everything AFA Stream has to offer, you'll get benefits like a subscription to The Stand and some really nice exclusives. Why not get started today? It's easy. Visit stream.afa.net.
The Hamilton Corner podcast and one-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
The number is 888-589-8840. I'm taking your calls. We've got some open lines. Feel free to weigh in on anything I've mentioned or something else that you want to bring up. 888-589-8840. All right, let's go to our first caller, which is Susan from Virginia. Susan, welcome.
Thank you for taking my call, Bishop. I had a question. The beginning of the month or whenever it was, they talked about like the Leering, which should have been learning centers, and all this fraud that was going on. And then nothing happened. And do you think that had they taken care of that first, because it seemed that they had enough evidence to do something about it, some of the other chaos might not have happened, because it seemed like they were fueling it. The lieutenant governor was the one behind the doxing app that they have or whatever, and Tim Waltz himself, I couldn't believe it, basically compared this to the Holocaust, which is nothing like the Holocaust, has nothing to do with that. It seemed like it fueled the fire. But what happened prior to this, what they were finding was pretty serious, and it seems like nothing was done. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, Susan, thank you so much for the call. It's good to hear from a fellow Virginian. And Susan, let us pray that Abigail Spenberger doesn't turn Virginia into Minnesota, because I think that's what they have in mind for the entire country, frankly. Look, I think this. I think that case is still pending. I think it's still being investigated. I think Pam Bondi is undoubtedly on it, because some of those funds that have been misappropriated, if you will, stolen, were federal funds. This becomes, therefore, a federal case, and I'm sure the FBI is investigating. Now, my understanding is there have been about, I think, 56 convictions. I think 98 were arrested. 85 of those people were Somalis. 98 were charged, I believe. 85 of them Somalis. A good number of those people have already been convicted. I think they're continuing to uncover more information as time goes on. So stand by. I think what has happened, though, is that the immigration thing has pushed all of that off the news. I don't think that means at all that nothing is happening, because remember, those are two kind of separate issues. The Justice Department really doesn't have much to do with this, other than investigating these cases where people have lost their lives or where federal agents are attacked. So that's kind of a different kind of case than this massive fraud that is going on. And these white collar cases, Susan, and for everybody, these are complicated cases. You got to, there's a lot of digging and a lot of sort of following the money trail, if you will, to figure out how things were being done and how these transactions were being effectuated. So I stand by. I think there's a whole lot more yet to come on that. But thank you for the call, Susan. Let's go to another fellow Virginian, David in Virginia. David, welcome.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for taking my call. I believe that, I have a comment and a question. I believe that Ilhan Omar got her money, ill-gotten gain, from the $19 billion that you spoke about. She's had her hand in the pot probably for a while. I also listened to At the Core, and not too awful long ago, Rick Green said that Speaker Mike Johnson could fire Ilhan Omar. Is that true? What's your comment on that?
All right. Well, thank you for the call, David. I think you're right. I think she has had her hand in the till. Now, there's no explanation. And by the way, if there were, you would think she would be the first to stand up and say, hey, wait, whoa, let me explain something. My husband and I invested in, or my husband and I bought a business, and whatever. And that's where our wealth is coming from. It is not coming from any ill-gotten gains. But she hadn't said anything, has she? So it does give you pause. Now, no, the speaker can't kick her out of Congress. Okay? The speaker can't do that. I think there are some rules that would allow them, but that would take a vote of the Congress in order to do that would allow them to expel her. But because the people voted her in, that's the kind of thing that is very rarely used. I'll do some more research on that, but I'm pretty sure they can. But what the Speaker himself alone can do, I'll tell you what he can do. He can fire her from all of her committees. She can be sitting in Congress and only able to participate when Congress is in session, where she can't because she would have no committee assignments. He could do that. And the moment she said America's the worst country in the world, in my view, he would have been justified to say, well, if you think America's the worst country in the world, maybe you shouldn't be conducting business. And maybe we should just leave you. You can represent your constituency in our sessions, but I don't need you on any committees with that attitude. So that much he could do. He certainly can't personally kick her out of Congress, but I'm pretty sure Congress could expel her. Thanks for the call, my friend. Let's go to Judith in Tennessee. Judith, welcome.
Hi. Thank you, Bishop, for taking my call. I was just wondering, are you familiar with the podcast on YouTube, Officer Tatum? He has Black Line Security for people like Nick Shirley.
Not only am I familiar with it, but I know him. Sure. He's been on my call, and in fact, I think he's been a guest on my program when I was hosting. I don't think he's been a guest since I've been sort of substitute hosting, but yeah, I know him.
I was watching that today before your show came on. He played a video of Alex Pretty before the shooting. It was like a block down, and he had a confrontation with the law enforcement there. He spit on the law enforcement, and then as they driving off, he kicked a hole in the back of their vehicle where the tail light was hanging down. The vehicle stopped. They got out. They went after him, tackled him to the ground. His coat came off. The gun was visible. They pepper sprayed, and they did, I don't know if it's rubber bullets or sandbags with the crowd there. Got back in the vehicle and left. Didn't touch him after that. So then a few blocks down, there he is again in the same clothes, and this time he gets shot. Did you see that video?
I did, yes. Yes.
So, now, I mean, he was an agitator. He was going there to cause trouble.
Oh, no question. No question about that. Look, thank you so much for the call, Judith. Thank you for some of those facts. And Officer Tatum, friend of mine, would be the one to bring out these kinds of facts. He probably has some good inside intel there as a former police officer. But look, he got his ribs broken in some kind of conflagration about a week earlier, I understand. So this guy has been in all kinds of physical confrontations and just been a bad actor, period. So I just want gun owners to understand that while I'm sure what Kash Patel was saying, if you're going to behave that way, you certainly should not be carrying a gun because you're going to be asking for trouble. And he asked for it, and he got it. So, yeah, I'm sure all the facts will come out, and we'll see this very, very clearly for what it is. But I think this guy brought this on himself. And these ICE agents are just like police officers are serving across this country. They don't get up in the morning and go out thinking, I want to hurt somebody, I want to kill somebody. In fact, I guarantee they get up in the morning and go out thinking, I hope I don't have to hurt somebody. I hope I don't have to kill somebody. And I hope nobody hurts me or kills me. Now, I think that's the mindset, again, 99.9999% of all law enforcement in this country. Okay, let's go to Jason in Texas. Jason, welcome back.
Hey, Brother Bishop. Thank you for taking my call. I know you're blessed. I'm blessed as well, brother. It's been a minute. Happy New Year, and congratulations on the baby.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
Oh, man, that's a blessing. God bless you.
It is. It is.
Hey, brother. Man, first thing, as soon as we find out how crooked Ilhan Omar is, we need to deport her. You know, as far as kicking her out of Congress, we need to just deport her and her brother that she married. But I called about this. I called about this whole Minneapolis, and they call this protesting. I've been to a lot of protests, Bishop, probably about 10 years worth. All of our protests, we carry our guns to every one of them, but they're concealed for the most part. Me and my wife keep ours concealed, but we don't block off any streets. We sure don't interact with any kind of police officers doing their job. I mean, common sense right there. But, yeah, it's just, common sense. When you carry a gun, you be on your best behavior. You let the police officers know you're carrying. I got pulled over. First thing I told the police officer, I said, "You want to see my gun license?" And then she asked me, "Are you carrying?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." "Where's it at?" "It's in my waistband." She said, "When I run your ID, I'll see if you got a gun license or not." But that was like 10 years ago when we still had to have a license to carry here in Texas. But, this is all by design, brother, to keep our focus away from all the 19 billion in fraud. And then they're going to go find all the fraud in California and New York and everywhere else. They want all this anarchy to keep America, like scared, They want us scared. We ain't scared, Bishop. But God bless you, brother. We love you.
God bless you, Jason. Good to hear from you again, my friend. They want that. And I tell you what, they also don't want us to cut off their political lifeblood because, stealing and manipulation of the political system for personal gain so that they can satisfy their de facto slave class, the people who they need to get out and vote for them, get out and lie for them, get out and riot for them, whatever they need them to do. They need money. And look, if they can turn a blind eye while you steal it and get a little piece of it too, no problem. Because you have to remember, these people don't have the same ethical and moral orientation that you and I do. They just don't. They don't believe in God. Therefore, they don't believe that there are any absolute rules. And they'll do whatever they think they can get away with. So, sad that this guy, by the way, Freddie had to lose his life with foolishness. But you're right, Jason. I mean, it's just foolishness. Let's see. Let's go here to get back to these calls. Let's go to Eric in North Carolina. Eric, welcome.
Well, good evening, Bishop. Thank you. It's a privilege to be on the call.
Thank you, sir.
I wanted to comment on your question about law enforcement at traffic stops for law-abiding citizens who are carrying, whether concealed or not. I think your approach is perfect. I've got 19-plus years in law enforcement myself, and there's no need to draw attention to it unless you're, maybe getting out of the vehicle from my perspective. Right. And, whether you're armed or unarmed, you don't resist law enforcement or interfere with the performance of their duties. That's against the law, whether you're armed or not.
There you go. Have you been in law enforcement then?
Yes, sir. For the last going on 20 years.
Oh, you still are. Well, Eric, thank you for your service, brother. Thank you for being out there for us.
Well, thank you, sir, and thank you for your Marine Corps service. I did have one other comment, if you have a second for it.
Go right ahead.
I share your concern about Miss Spenberger, as you called her, taking office in Virginia as a alumnus of VMI. Myself, I'm concerned about that and some of the bills that are currently before the Virginia. To strip VMI of its independent governance. House Bill 1374 is trying to put its Board of Visitors under Virginia State University so that they can't make long-term decisions for the Institute. Wow. And House Bill 1377 is trying to establish a task force to investigate them again, whether they should be funded at all. So, and for Senate Bill 494, the Board of Visitors, they weren't trying to basically do a court packing kind of scheme. So,
all right,
we need patriotic
Eric,
institutions.
Thank you for the call, Eric. We're out of time. Man, you know more about what's going on in Virginia than most Virginians do, and you're in North Carolina, so thank you for that. But look, you have to remember, though, Abigail Spenberger is a moderate, so we don't have anything to worry about. Folks, that's going to do it for today. It's been my pleasure, my honor to sit in for Abraham Hamilton III. In the meantime, you know what to do. Stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up. because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side.